Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is a video that I have made before, but it was a few years ago now, and I wanted to revisit it. If I'm absolutely honest, the original video did not perform that well. Even back at the time, I had far fewer subscribers, and even then, I don't know if it was the thumbnail, the title, the subject didn't seem to appeal to that many people. But I'm giving it another go because I think it's an important thing to talk about, and I wanted to get the community's feedback on it. Now, I've been thinking about artillery for some time now, and this video was finally tipped over the edge for me to do it by General Dan. He has his own channel all over at Forlorn Hobbies. He has just finished his Russian artillery emplacement. It's really, really nice. Go and pop over there and take a look after you've watched his video. And it's from the rules that the Russians have to can emplace their cannons. It looks really, really nice. I'm super impressed with it. But I want to talk about artillery in general. Now, it is no surprise anyone who's seen any of my battle reports can understand the little corporal I am not. I do not really use artillery that well. A lot of the battles, it sort of starts off, because I'm quite an aggressive player, it starts off firing at the enemy, and then within a turn or two turns, either there's too many of my own troops in the way, or the enemy has moved out of a decent firing area. So I am more than willing to accept that it's perhaps a skill issue that stops me getting the most out of my artillery. But that said, I do feel that artillery in Black Powder does not really operate the way that it perhaps should, or that the artillery in that period would. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my sort of concluding statement at the beginning. Then I'm going to evidence why I think that should be the case. So, the thing that I'm arguing for in this video, and as I say, I have done a video on this before, but it was a few years ago, and it doesn't seem to have been that popular. Now I'm running events. The feedback from this video could well go into, probably not Under Eagles to Glory, because that's too soon, but certainly to the sound of the guns, this may be implemented. So I'm putting this open to the community. Let me know what you think down below. But my thesis is that artillery fire should be a separate phase that happens at the start of the turn. So before movement, before close combat, before regular shooting, artillery should have its own shooting phase. Now, why is this? Well, there's two things that we rely on our artillery to do in Black Powder. The first one is to project force. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that our muskets have got an 18-inch range, but someone can stand 18.5 inches away and they're super safe. So artillery stops that. Artillery means that the enemy has to be forced into action because they can't just stay taking an artillery pounding for the whole game. Particularly if you are in a formation which makes casualties heavier, so you're in column of march, column of attack, battalion mass, something like that. So that's the first thing that we have for artillery. Now the second thing is that we use it to disrupt the enemy. Now, I've been playing Warmaster recently. I've been thinking a lot about Warmaster, which is the sort of great uncle of Black Powder. I wouldn't quite say grandfather because it's not a direct route. Actually, I don't know, but it's certainly in the family tree. And one of the things with Warmaster is that missile fire as a whole, not just artillery, but particularly artillery is good at it, is about disrupting the enemy. It's not necessarily about killing the enemy. There are very, very few missile units in Warmaster that can kill even a single base of models. So the way it works in Warmaster is each base of models has a number of hits, usually 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5, and you have to do that many hits in one shooting phase in order to remove a stand, because all the excess hits or spare hits are just removed at the end of the phase. So if you think you hit on a 4, you've got to do 3 shots. You've got to get 3 hits on the enemy. So that means you've got to do 4 if they've got a 5+ armor save, which means you've got to hit them, shoot 8 shots at them if you're hitting on a 4+, and so on and so forth. So it ends up getting to the stage where you're unlikely to destroy a full base. But what you can do is you can peel that unit out of a brigade. So it's more like Hail Caesar in that units have to be in base contact to support. And in War Master, you can push a unit back a number of d6 and perhaps confuse them as well. That's the sort of 2.5 thing with artillery and black powder. We are fishing for sixes a lot of the time. That's why I'm quite happy to fire over my own troops as heads. It's -1 to hit. I'm -1 at long range, so I'm hitting the enemy on sixes. I don't really care because I'm only after a 6 anyway. I'm trying to disrupt the enemy. So that's something that moving the artillery phase to the start of the turn will achieve. You will disrupt the enemy before you do your charges. Now, this is absolutely vital. We'll come to the why that's important a little bit later on, but this absolutely changes the game. At the moment, I believe that just mathematically, the power is with the defenders. If you can get to a position, if you can get there fastest with the mostest, you're probably going to win if it's an objective game. That makes your leadership, your strategy rating, the most important thing in the game. Now, interestingly, the 2 armies that I had as S tier are armies that have pretty low strategy ratings, but you can get around it. So that's why I think they were that good. So, for instance, the Russians, they get +1 for charging, or they can always charge the initiative range. The Austrians, they can order 2 battalions at the same time, which is actually a little bit of a stealth win, because it means that if you fail, then you can still order the second one. And anyway, that's not really what I want to get into today. But the defenders have the strength with them, and it's purely mathematical. If you take 2 units that are exactly the same, so we'll say the French are fighting the French, and it's 3 shots from shooting, 6 shots in hand-to-hand combat. The attacker gets 6 shots hitting on 3s. The attacker gets 6 hand-to-hand combats hitting on 3s. That's great. The defender gets 3 closing fire shots hitting on 3s, and then they get their 6 close combat ones. If they disorder the enemy in those 3 shots as they come in, and there's a 50% chance that you will mathematically, then the attackers are hitting back on 4s. So the defenders are then hitting 3 dice on 3s, and then 6 dice on 4s, and the attacker is hitting 6 dice on 4s. That's why in my Under Eagles to Glory pack, I've made the closing fire happen, and then the attacker decide which unit does the actual close combat. And that's just to stop that. If you have worked it in such a way that you can have multiple charges, it stops that one unit getting a cheeky 6, and suddenly your whole assault has been stymied just by one unit rolling a 6. By using the artillery at the start of the turn, before charges are declared, you then have the opportunity to disorder or disrupt the defenders. So I fire my artillery, the charge goes in, I've rolled a cheeky 6, and suddenly that closing fire is hitting me on 4s instead of 3s. That can make a huge difference. I mean, it's a 15%? It's a 16% difference in the number of hits, or you could also say it's a 25% change in the number of hits as well. So maths is weird in this case. But it basically comes down to the enemy is less likely to hit you with their standing and shooting. Now, this rewards combined arms play. Now, this is something, as I say, that in Napoleonic Wargaming, I definitely need to work on more, because it rewards you coordinating your infantry assaults with your artillery. Now, we have talked about the 2 stools of the Napoleonic... 2 legs of the Napoleonic stool here, with artillery and infantry. What about the other one? Artillery and cavalry. Now, this is perhaps even more important, because it allows you to potentially disrupt the enemy before declaring a cavalry charge. And a disrupted enemy is more difficult to form square. So it means that you're more likely to catch the enemy in line. This goes a long way to uppowering cavalry. Cavalry are an interesting case in that once they get into combat, they very often feel a little lackluster. If you've got elite cavalry or top badass cavalry or British cavalry, you probably won't notice this. But if you charge a unit of infantry with a unit of hussars, an infantry would be the hussars' ideal prey To be honest, you're going to be lucky if you win. Again, we go back to the 3 shots for standing and shooting, 6 shots in hand-to-hand combat. The cavalry have only got 6 attacks. So, again, you're 50-50 at best of winning that combat. That's before you even get to the supports. I mean, it's so easy for an infantry battalion to have at least +2 static res if they've got units, like 1 unit next to them and 1 behind them. They've got, you wouldn't charge the one in the middle usually, so they're probably on +2. So this means that the chance to disorder the enemy means that they're more, you're going to find it more difficult to form square. They're hitting you on 5s in close combat, so you've got more chance of winning the combat when you get in. This is where I think that artillery having its own phase at the beginning, again, it helps you with your it helps you with the combination of your cavalry and artillery support. Now, it's all well and good talking about game mechanics. I've just gone through some maths, some numbers there. I may come back to that later on. I may not do. It depends if I feel that the cake has already been egged enough, the pudding, as it were. But I want to talk about, in history, how realistic is that? Am I saying, well, we should do this for the game, but that's not how it would be in history? Well, I think we can say with pretty clear minds that that was exactly the point of artillery in Napoleonic battles. It wasn't so if you play the Waterloo rules from Games Workshop, which is based on War of the Ring, artillery will just absolutely decimate units on the table. It's like the First World War. They're like machine guns, honestly. That was not the role of artillery. There's a reason why troops could wear red coats and march across an open field. Artillery was not that effective at killing people. Don't get me wrong, you get hit by an 8-pound cannonball, 6-pound cannonball, hell, you get hit by a 3-pound cannonball, you're going to have an incredibly bad day. But it's not wiping out entire companies of troops in one volley. Although it does against Richard's Waterloo. But what it's there for is it's there to disrupt the enemy. It's there to soften up the enemy. To use a modern parlance, it's there to prepare the enemy for an assault. Now that sounds it sounds quite pleasant. I can assure you it would not have been. But the idea is that the artillery is there to either damage the enemy's morale, their will to fight, or yes, to thin out their numbers. Now there are a few examples of artillery doing this, sometimes successfully, sometimes unsuccessfully. Perhaps the most famous example of it being a success is very early on in the Napoleonic Wars, actually during the Revolutionary Wars. In 1792, you've got our boy Kellerman, and he was in command at the Battle of Valmy, which is also sometimes apparently known as the Cannonade of Valmy. Just to give you an example that, it was it was pretty artillery heavy. So Francois Kellerman, he had his artillery up on a hill, and the Prussians were marching out some trees. This is obviously a very simplified telling of the battle. You had some cannons on like a slope. The Prussians came out of some trees in their clockwork 7 Years' War style. The French artillery opened up, absolutely obliterated the infantry. Didn't kill them all, obviously, but caused quite a lot of discomfort and confusion. And then the French infantry poured down the slope, and that was enough for the Prussians, who then ran off. So that's an example of a cannonade before an infantry assault. Now, a cannonade is slightly different from a normal bombardment. I'll come to that in a bit, because there's another part of black powder artillery which just fuddles my brain. But we'll come back to that in a bit. So another example would be, of course, a guy whose video I really, really need to finish. He was the commander of the French Imperial Guard artillery, a General Antoine Drouot, and he was in charge of the artillery at the Battle of Leipzig. Now, these guys were, obviously, they were defending quite a built-up position. The Russian Guard were attacking / standing around, not doing much, and they got a good old cannoning before the French infantry attacked onto them. Another example of a French cannonade would be at Ligny, where they bombarded the village before attacking. And if we want to flip the script, There is the example of a defensive bombardment that happened at Borodino. So the French were attacking, and there was some covering fire provided by Grand Duke Constantine's Imperial Guard artillery there as well, Russian Imperial Guard this time. And the idea there is that it was more defensive fire from a position that was quite far back, actually. It's an interesting interaction, one that's quite a modern fire plan that happened back then. Grand Duke Constantine is an interesting guy, a much better commander than I think most people give him credit for, and that's mainly because he didn't really have any individual commands. So we've got an idea of artillery softening up the enemy before the attack. And to be honest, while I've given a couple of examples there, Eylau would be another example. Also, the battle I was talking about the other week, Wagram. So while I'm talking about these sort of, examples I'm plucking out of history, I think there's an almost inherent sense that that's what we expect from artillery. Is you fire the artillery at range, that softens up the enemy, and then you go in. It's shock and awe. It's how wars are fought today, even. So I think we have an innate understanding of this. Now, the problem is, at the moment, that artillery fires after movement, and you can't fire into a combat. So infantry, they've gone in, they've received the closing fire, then they go in, or they don't go, whatever happens, and then the artillery are expected to fight. So there's no fire support for the artillery there. I'm almost talking against myself because I'm saying that the artillery's prep has been done, the infantry have gone in, so the phase has moved from the preparation to the assault. Well, that's fair enough. But in between the last time the cannon has fired and the infantry have gone in, the enemy have had the chance to get rid of their disorder markers. Now, I don't necessarily mean they've had the chance because they've got the elite rule. Remember, a unit with elite 4+, or whatever the number is, at the start of their turn, they roll the dice, and on that number or above, then they lose their disordered status. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how at the end of your turn, all of your disordered markers come off. So if I disorder you in turn 1, then it's your turn 1, then I charge you in my turn 2. You've lost your disordered marker at the end of your turn 1. So you can't carry them over. This, I think, is a massive problem because it's like prepping the enemy with a bombardment, waiting an hour, and then sending the attack in. Now, that did actually happen. That happened at Waterloo to the French. And how did that turn out for the French? So don't do that, would be my suggestion. Don't wait. You should be going in. Now, this is not modern warfare, and even in modern warfare, it's not the First World War. You can't do a time on target bombard, Second World War, but you can't do a creeping barrage where the infantry go up behind intricately planned artillery strikes. But it must be said that even back in Napoleonic times, it was artillery that were the gunner's time is what armies actually went upon. So you would synchronize your watches to the gunner even back then. So the importance of timing is there for artillery. Now, this is the other thing as well, of course. It means that this rule would deleteriously affect horse artillery. And this is because the horse artillery can unlimber in the movement phase and still shoot in the shooting phase. So that is something that could be worked. You could say, well, they can automatically unlimber and fire if they're within 12 inches of the enemy or 18 inches, or whatever you want that range to be. You could say they can do that. 12 would be the obvious thing because that's an initiative move. Now there's another thing, but we'll come back to that in a second. Or you could just say, well, that's part of the game. You have to get your horse artillery in a position to soften up the enemy so they move the previous turn, unlimber, and then they can fire in the current turn. Now, the way that you could improve the mobility or keep the mobility of the horse artillery is saying that once they've fired, they can then limber up, whereas regular foot artillery, once they've fired, they can't limber that turn. Now, if you've ever seen the layout of a Napoleonic cannon and crew, they take up a huge amount of real estate. And that's fair enough for the foot, that they can't be moving stuff around super quickly. It would take a lot of time and coordination to get all those wagons lined up. So that's how you could keep the mobility of the horse artillery. They can fire and limber in the same turn. Obviously, they would require a different order. Now, here's a thing that I just mentioned there, is you could potentially have artillery fire counting as an initiative move. So this is a third, sort of the third way, as it were. So artillery can make an initiative move. They can always make an initiative fire order, but they can only do the movement or limbering or whatever if they're within normal initiative range. That's another a middle way that you could do. So you can choose the order that you do your initiative moves. So I could do my initiative cannon fire and then initiative charge, but initiatives always come before orders. So that's a potential another way. For me personally, though, I would rather have a separate artillery phase. So when you look down the order of like turn structure, you get, number one, instead of movement, it's artillery phase. That's just me, though. And you could say that if you unlimbered in the previous turn, you could then fire, but then you can't limber. It is another way of doing it. Not that you limber foot artillery that often, but I'm trying to differentiate between horse artillery and foot artillery. Now, I have seen some rules where artillery fire twice in a turn. I think that's a bit too much. While artillery in Black Powder is pretty piss poor, I think having them fire twice in a turn is very strong. That's why one of my vignettes is the Caisson. That allows them to fire twice in one turn in the game. So it's a powerful thing. If you do it at the right time, it could be absolutely devastating. And if that battery of cannons that were guarding Napoleon had been able to fire twice in my last game, then that would have been something else. But yeah, so that's my suggestion here. I wanted to keep this video fairly simple because I want this one to be one that we talk about in the comments. I'm going to dive into the comments for this one as well. So the basic thesis is, I'm just wrapping it up now. I'm just going to go over it again. The basic thesis is 4 to the sound of the guns. Now remember, this is going to be an epic scale. 4 to the sound of the guns. Would you prefer if there were an artillery phase? So taken out of the shooting, artillery was moved separately, and that phase took place before movement. Okay? So that's the question I'm asking. If the answer is yes, then please answer yes in the comments below. Tell me why you think it's a good idea. If the answer is no, then tell me why it's a bad idea. So a friend of mine, he did some event packs for Warhammer Fantasy when Games Workshop nuked it. And he was always very much against changing core rules, so he wouldn't change Steadfast. Now, Steadfast as it was in the rules didn't make any sense whatsoever, so I would change it for my event. I don't mind changing basic rules, but I do know for a fact there are people out there who don't like basic rules being changed. So if that's you, let me know about that in the comments as well. I'd be interesting to see what Rick Priestley would think of this. So Rick, if you are watching this video, then please let me know in the comments or reach out to me what you think of that idea. But overall, that's what I'm coming out with. Should there be a separate artillery phase at the start of the turn? Yes or no? And please give me the reasons for your answers. That's it. I hope it's had a bit of a, what was it Poirot says? Stimulated the old aggressors. So I hope we've had a bit of that. If nothing else, I hope it's something to ponder on. Those of you who like different sets of rules from Black Powder, when does your artillery fire? Is it at the start of the turn? Is it in a different phase? Do you like it when it fires? How would you change it in your sets of rules? Let me know with all these things down in the comments below. I really, really want this video to be a discussion. It's Christmas time. It's cold. It's dark. It's horrible. It's miserable. Let's get the comments up while I'm in the pub with a pint, and we can argue back and forth. I think that's going to be really good. Obviously, keep it civil in the comments. I know everyone will. And I hope that you've been enjoying the Advent Calendar Challenge. Today is the 7th, so we are 7 videos in. So you don't even have to see any of the ones yet, and you can still qualify for the grand prize. Remember, you need to get 16 or more correct answers, and then you are entered into the draw. So if you have 16 or you have 24 correct answers, you have no more or less chance of winning than the other person. So I hope you are taking part in that. At 7 o'clock, the videos for that go live every day, so check one of those out if you want to take part in that. It's always good fun. I love doing them, and I just want to say thank you for everyone who has been watching along so far, and we've still got 2/3 of them to go. But that's it. So, artillery phase, yay or nay for the event pack. This, what you guys come up with, this is going to be going to have a direct impact on the To the Sound of the Guns event pack. Let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you in 45 minutes for the advent calendar clue for today. I'm trying to think what the image was. I went on it this morning, and it's just gone completely out of my brain. Let me have a quick look. Where are we? It's oh yeah, that's a good one. That is a Polish ADC for today, so he is a particularly fancy looking guy. But that blue is gorgeous. If anyone knows how to get that blue effect as well, please let me know. But yeah, that is it. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys in 45 minutes. Please do comment down below. And check out Generals Dan's video, which inspired this whole rant over at Forlorn. So that's FORLORN, hobbies as in hobbies. And give his Russian artillery video some love, because he's done an absolutely fantastic job. Right, I'll see you guys later. Thanks, and see you next time.